are going to make a chili stuffed roasted butternut squash. It is super flavorful. The smell coming out of your kitchen will be amazing. And it's really like a warming, just like savory, stick to your ribs kind of experience for actually a very WW friendly recipe. So we are gonna use some meat. We're gonna use ground turkey meat. We are gonna add a little bit of quinoa in there, but most of this dish is vegetable and it's so flavorful and juicy. I'm adding chipotle and adobo so for a little sweet smoky heat. I'm adding some juicy fire roasted tomatoes, plenty of savory spices, a little sweet corn, a little avocado on top. Yay for ZeroPoints avocado. I'm still losing my mind over this new WW development. So let's cook, because the only piece of this recipe that actually takes a bit of time is the roasting of your friend, the butternut squash. And I should tell you, since it is fall and it is squash season, you can totally do this over just like wedges of pumpkin, kabocha squash, pretty much any sweet, yummy roasted squash works great. I'm gonna just slice it in half because I kind of wanna create boats into which we will nestle that chili experience. So use a sharp chef's knife and just take off the top and the bottom. And I don't even bother to peel this because I'm gonna use the skin as just a bit of extra insulation to make sure that nothing escapes from our boats. And then I just very carefully slice down the squash vertically. So when you open up your butternut squash, it looks like this. Lovely bright orange color, lots of beta carotene, good for your eyes, good for your skin. Delicious. Just using a spoon to scoop out the bowl here. And I will tell you, you can absolutely roast these seeds up. They make for a nice little crunchy, crispy topping. Just separate them from the flesh, toss them with a little bit of olive oil, some salt or garlic salt. Roast them until they are tender and crispy and crunchy. You're in business. Make sure you go deep enough when you're scooping that bowl out to take off any of these sort of like gills looking pieces, which can add a little bit of bitterness, I find. And once you have the bowls of your butternut squash cleaned out, you're gonna put them onto a parchment paper lined baking sheet. And these are gonna go in the oven just until they're soft and tender and cooked beautifully. And it should smell very good in your kitchen, like 45 minutes to an hour. So now we're gonna make this meaty chili base that we're gonna use to stuff the butternut squash and really give it that sumptuous filling experience. So I have a stainless steel skillet here that I'm going to heat up over a medium high with about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in there. And it is important to have either a spray olive oil or enough olive oil here in the base of the pan because it's not a non-stick, just to make sure that your turkey or your chicken doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. So our oil is nice and hot. You can see it runs away all over the pan. Let's go ahead and drop our turkey meat in, and then I will show you the spices that I'm adding to give this plenty of delicious flavor. This is a pound of ground turkey. And I'm just using my wooden spoon to break it up. And then I won't touch it too much because I do want it to have a chance to brown and release any steam. And now I'm gonna go in with my spices. So per usual for chili, I've got some gorgeous chili powder here, a little bit of heat there. If you want more, you can definitely add some cayenne in. You could add some paprika, which is more of like a sweet smokiness. Chipotle chili powder is great. I'm gonna add cumin because that's something that I absolutely have to have in my chilies. I love the sort of earthy note of that. I have some garlic powder and some onion powder for a little bit of sweetness and that savory onion family. Some salt, obviously, and don't be afraid. I am bringing the heat here. I'm gonna add some chipotle and adobo, which has that tomato and garlic and vinegar and like the smoky sweet heat of that chipotle pepper. So you will have some delicious flavor, don't you worry. So as I just wiggle it together, look at this like sand art I'm making like back at the fair in 1992. And just sprinkle that all over your turkey. And you want to make sure your spices hit the hot oil. That's what's going to help them bloom and really coat your meat and release all their yummy essential oils. It doesn't look super gorgeous right now. I have to tell you, I have yet to see a cooking video where I'm like, yeah, raw meat, that looks good. So bear with me, it will get good. If I had a bigger pan, I would absolutely be using a bigger pan, but we are using what we have today. So what I've done is created these little kind of pockets in between pieces of meat so that any steam that is created quickly evaporates. I'm not trying to steam this meat. I want it to be super juicy, but also get a nice crust from where it's touching the hot pan and the hot oil. And that means I'm not going to bother it too much at this point. The less you do here, the better off you will be. Once you start to get some glorious golden brown crusting, then you can get in there with the wooden spoon and start to break it up and really crumble it into bite-sized pieces. But for now, relax. And we can start to see how there's a little bit of golden brown happening underneath. So at this point, I will quickly just give it a quick chop with the side of my wooden spoon. I gave up on the ridiculous joke of a tiny pan and moved it into a giant stock pot like this, just because I'm going to be adding so many yummy other elements to this turkey chili base, so I did not want to struggle more than I had to. The meat is nice and cooked at this point. I'm letting it just sit a little bit longer on the surface so I get a little bit more crusting and golden brown action like I'm looking for. While that's going, I'm gonna chop up a little bit of garlic just to boost this flavor even more. And I will tell you one little quick trick, cheat, hack, whatever, that I like to do sometimes. I'm gonna be adding some fire roasted tomatoes in, but if you want to doctor up the flavor even more here, go ahead and add a jar of salsa. It is such an easy way to just charge up the flavor. You get garlic in there, onion, chili peppers, sometimes, unless you went mild, tomato, all kinds of good stuff, lime juice. I'm just gonna give these a quick rough chop. They're gonna be simmering away with the meat and the tomatoes and everything, so no need to be overly precise here. I call that 2 medium cloves of garlic, but I had to use 4 tiny cloves. And I'm dropping this in over our turkey right as the cooking process is pretty much wrapping up, because I don't want to leave the garlic on a hot surface too long or it will risk burning. Okay, so at this point, garlic is in the air. It absolutely has perfumed our meat, all those spices working together too. I'm gonna drop in a 15-ounce can of fire roasted tomatoes, and this is what you would sub the salsa for if you have it. But these are gonna add a really nice smoky char, such a delicious punch of tomato flavor, and give our chili a little bit of a sauce. And because you know I like the heat, I'm going to use some chipotle and adobo. So these are smoked jalapenos. So they do have a bit of heat to them, sometimes more, sometimes less. So 2 whole chipotle, and then I'm going to go back and grab a couple tablespoons of their liquid. And this is some vinegar and tomato, some extra seasoning. So 4 or 5 tablespoons of that sauce, and then just use your spoon to kind of break down and break apart those smoked chilies. Release their seeds, release that juice, and use it to coat this yummy turkey blend. And while it's still nice and saucy, before it evaporates too much, I'm gonna add in some black beans. And this is sort of to taste. You could also totally use a variety of beans. Kidney beans are great in here, pinto beans, black beans, chickpeas, pretty much whatever you have around. Lovely, luscious, from the freezer corn. If you have fresh corn, more power to you. It is so sweet and fresh. I would use it raw, just slice it right off the cob and throw it in here. This is just thawed frozen corn, which makes it easy to enjoy all year long. And then I'm gonna go in with a cup of leftover quinoa. This is another place where you do you. If you have brown rice left over, if you have lentils left over, anything like this that's mild and easy and just bulks up your beautiful chili, works really well. And you'll see the quinoa distributes really nicely, which is why I like it. You almost don't notice it's there. It just adds a little bit of extra protein, a little bit of extra texture, and it soaks up all that yummy flavor of your chili. And at this point, it's really just a question of giving it a quick taste, seeing how we like what we're experiencing. Oh yeah. Ooh, the heat just kicked in. Oh my gosh, I really like that. Okay, a little bit more salt. The turkey is completely cooked at this point, so everything happening here is just to reheat the corn, reheat the beans, infuse that quinoa with yummy flavor, let some of that liquid burn off so that we have a really still very juicy, nice mix, but it's not gonna be running away from us on the squash. And now we just wait for the squash to finish roasting. Okay, so our squash has been in like 50 minutes. It's gorgeous, soft, fork tender. The skin has wrinkled up just a little bit here. It gives, if I squeeze here, it really holds the indentation. That's how you know it's nice and soft and cooked through. Quickly turn your squash over. Just be careful not to lose. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at that honey, gold, beautiful, rich, yummy boat. That's a vegetable. And then all we're gonna do is scoop in some of the chili. So it depends how labor intensive you wanna get with this process. You can definitely just pile the chili right into the bowl here in your butternut squash. If you wanna create a little bit more of that sort of boat space, just go ahead and scoop out a little bit of the upper piece here, and you create an even bigger indentation for that chili. And I will tell you, this flesh does not go to waste. You can combine it into any creamy, cheesy pasta sauce. You can freeze it and throw it into smoothies. I know you're gonna be insanely skeptical of that idea, but it's sweet and it's creamy and it kind of works like a mango. Or you can just eat it out of the bowl. I love butternut squash. I love chili season. I love squash season. I'm so happy. Okay, so now all that's left is to scoop your chili into the basin that you've created with your squash. And you can see most of the liquid here has evaporated off, but it's still nice and juicy. Those nice big pieces of ground turkey are coming through. So you're gonna feel like you are having a super indulgent meal. But again, we're doing it with a couple servings of veggies happening. So don't forget, if you're doing WW like I am, you actually earn points now for servings of vegetables. So all about that. Plus I just like vegetables, so a double win. And these are gonna go under the broiler. Watch them closely. We're just looking for a little golden browning, no burning. So while the squash is finishing up in the broiler, I'm just gonna cut up some avocado. I love avocado. I love avocado. And I cannot describe to you how intensely excited I was to learn that avocado and all of its healthy fat is now a 0-point food. And this is one of my favorite ways to use it because we're only gonna use a little bit, but those bright green flecks over this really sumptuous chili and that sweet butternut squash underneath, it goes a long way. And that's, I mean, look, that's the reality is like you're making great choices. You're doing things that feel really good for your body and you're staying on track, you're keeping up with your goals. You're doing it in a way that doesn't feel like you're sacrificing at all. So I'm just gonna put a quick chop on here, leaving big enough pieces that we really see them and enjoy them. But if you wanted to, you could absolutely mash this up with a little bit of jalapeno, a little bit of garlic, make kind of like a quick guacamole situation. Would not complain about that. Something else I really love about this recipe is that it feels like I'm always on this sort of quest for how to make my clean eating feel as indulgent and celebratory as my indulgent eating. And this feels like this beautiful marriage of both. I feel like it's letting me have the bites and the moments of real, like, sumptuous, rich fattiness with the avocado, and even with just how juicy that turkey is made to feel in the bath of the chipotle and the tomatoes and the garlic and all the seasonings and everything. There's nothing here that feels like a sacrifice or like, oh, I've got to eat clean. This is how I want to eat. It just happens to also be great for me. And that's something that I love is you know, this WW program is really about being flexible. Like, you got to meet humans where they are. We're not trying to be perfect. We're not trying to eat in this like really rigid, narrow path. They want to have fun. You want to enjoy your life. You want to cook delicious meals. You want to go out to dinner. You want to have fun with your family. And you want to do it in a way that still supports your health, makes you feel strong, gives you tons of energy, makes you happy. So this is definitely the perfect balance of a recipe for me. And now, can the squash finally be ready so I can taste it? It's hot. Hot tamale. Look at that. Look at this golden brown exterior, a little bit of crust here on the top. Now I'm gonna add just a few fresh leaves of cilantro for a little greenness, a little freshness on top, a little fresh herby flavor. It also happens to be a powerfully detoxifying herb if we care about these sorts of things. But I'm also just like a big fan of, since everything else on this dish has been roasted and long cooked to perfection, I kind of need a little like fresh salad kind of moment here too. It's time for the avocado. Here she comes. Beautiful gems of rich, creamy, fatty deliciousness. I'm gonna grab a little squeeze of fresh lime juice just to give it a bit of acid and juice here on top. And it will help keep the avocado from browning too. Okay, here she is. Your stuffed butternut squash boat filled with that turkey chili, topped with avocado. You really can't go wrong. You can start from either end. I'm gonna go over here and I will tell you that you can definitely eat the skin. It really roasts down and gets very nice and soft. Just give it a good scrub before you roast. Get organic if you can. Let's just slice it up. Look at how tender that is. Make sure you get some turkey on top. Plenty of corn, the sweet corn, the meatiness of those beans, and then of course the avocado too. Everything is happening in your mouth right now. There's so much texture, so many fun things to chew on. It's so filling, sweet plus savory with that little bit of acid on top from the fresh lime juice. And the heat that sneaks up on you from that smoky chipotle and adobo. And then the cooling, creamy avocado to melt it all into total perfection. My husband, as soon as he finds out this is ready, is going to come running into this kitchen and try to steal this from me. It is definitely a meal that anybody who's a fan of nachos is going to enjoy. I had moved on to eating with my hands, which is how you know it was really good. But one thing I will say is I absolutely love when doing something that's good for you feels like doing something that's bad for you. I'll leave you with that.